is posted. Hey, everybody. Rex Bear Elite Project. How the heck are you? It's another day in paradise, another day out here in southern Colorado. I have the opportunity to be speaking with Jay Campbell right now. And Jay, you are a legend amongst legends. You have you've brought a lot of light into my life and my mind, and we've had some great conversations and great experiences. Met some amazing people also along the way. And so today we're going to talk about raising your vibration of your mind to where you're actually connected to your higher self versus the ego's reptilian mind. And they all have their place.
Absolutely.
You know, but we're going to talk about how to reach that higher level of consciousness, that different level of consciousness. And Jay, you've been doing fantastic with the Decoders of Truth, man. We've been doing some amazing episodes, and I would recommend people go watch the Decoders of Truth episodes under forbiddenknowledge.tv. Billy Carson has a really cool network where we've done some great shows. And Peru is coming up here in a few months. So I haven't been able to confirm that I can go to that, but I'm going to work on it.
I've already manifested it, bro. You'll be there.
Okay.
It's all good.
Awesome. I love hearing that. And where do we start, man? So much is going on right now. And today is the day to manifest the most. Literally, where the planets are aligned in the star charts, starting on the 3rd and all the way until today, there's going to be this opening where we can manifest our thoughts much faster. And let's do it.
Beautiful, man. So I know you know this. I didn't know this until yesterday, but all that is true. Tomorrow is the biggest supermoon of this year, and I think the biggest supermoon of the 21st century from a magnification standpoint. Now, before we get attacked, Jay, the Earth is flat and the moon is a fake. This is the dome and it's the Truman Show. I mean, whatever it is, it will be magnificently, voluminously bright tonight. And my wife and I were taking pictures. I should actually show you, but I don't want to take rabbit hole, but we were doing pictures of the moon last night when we were walking our dogs. And bro, I had orbs in the pictures. And, my wife, took pictures. We have the same phone, 13 Pro Plus. We just upgraded our phone for the first time in 3 years. I finally was like, oh my God, my phone won't work. I got to get a new phone. That's another story. We can talk about EMFs, but I got the new phone and I'm like, your phone is the same as my phone and it doesn't have the orb. So, I mean, I'll show you off air. I got some incredible pictures. But yes, the moon, the alignment of astrological alignments, there's all sorts of amazing things going on right now so we can manifest. Let me just say first, I love and appreciate you. I'm always humbly privileged and grateful to be here on your show. You have an amazing audience. You are an amazing human being. And the opportunity to speak to other people so that you and I can create a resonant, coherent frequency is most important. And I think that today's show, I have not done this yet. As I told you, I am speaking to Tony Robbins' Biohacker University at the end of August about this. And it's like the first presentation, I think, of its type. And it's really about, fully optimizing the body, mind, heart, and soul. And like, how can we do this in today's day and age? And so, I really want to speak to your audience about frequency, as you just said. And something you said that's really important, and, we can get into it, and I can share the slide deck, and, and I don't have to show the slide deck. We can just talk about topics. I'll say things, and you can respond. We can make it conversational. But people really do have to understand that the reptilian consciousness, which is our ego, which is the personality, which is Rex Bear and Jay Campbell, has a very important place in our consciousness field as human beings, because without it, we would not be able to stay alive. We would not be able to survive, calamitous events. The ego is what allows us to react and to defend ourselves and all that stuff. So it is very, very much needed in a physical body. So I know a lot of people, especially in the spiritual community, get confused about that when they hear the word reptilian. But the truth is the reptilian brain is the left side, again, the logical side of us. And the right brain is, the mammalian, the heart-centered or the heart-based awareness, which is truly the higher self, which is, your aspect or your access to divinity. And so, I'll stop. We can go any direction you want with it. But obviously, I have a really awesome presentation here that talks about a lot of these things in a very understandable way.
Well, I'd like to see the presentation. So,
okay.
Thank you.
I mean, if you're okay with it, dude, I'm happy to go. And obviously with this, it's even better because we can do kind of like a TED Talk. And you can just stop me, when you see something you want to talk about. So let me share. Ready?
Great.
All right, rock and roll. All right, let me know if you see it.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So like I said, guys, this is a presentation I'm doing for Tony Robbins' Biohacker University at the end of August. I don't know when it comes out, but I'm actually doing like a live TED Talk in Miami in end of August in the hotel where it's at. But so this is the first time I've presented this other than to myself and my private group. So I'm really grateful, Rex, to have this to your audience, right? Because you have a lot of people. So thank you. So how spirituality alchemizes the body, mind, heart, and soul. So I'm just going to, start right off. And again, you stop me, say whatever you want. But so service, devotion, and connection to the one, which, most people know of as God, source, all that is, whatever. So the first part of like really truly integrating this or alchemizing this in, what people would think of spiritual training. And you know this, but spiritual training is not the church. It's not Sunday. It's not Islam or Catholicism or Protestantism or Judaism or any of that. This is, just spirituality, not religiosity from, Abrahamic teachings or even Eastern teachings. But the first part of spiritual training involves learning that our connection to the Creator is obviously our higher self or our divine ego. Our divine ego is an immortal, indivisible, and highly evolved aspect of our soul. Okay, and it's the part of us that knows we are God. Now, if you go back to, the Gnostic teachings, the Nag Hammadi, and then, of course, even the Bible, and who knows how much of the Bible has been corrupted and corrupted. But the bottom line is that Yeshua, a.k.a. Jesus, the Christ, the Christos, he said the kingdom of God is within you. This is what he meant. The divine ego, which is our higher self, is the kingdom within you. So each of us has this connection to divinity in us. It's about learning to connect with it and bring it out, which I'll get to later, in this presentation. But I mean, again, I'm just going to kind of skip through recognition that you are the one. There is no separation. So the most important thing to take today from this presentation is to recognize that all of us are connected. Rex, you've had 1,000 people come on your show and talk about unity. But this is how we have to understand that we really are connected, because we're not separate from the field or the energy, the frequency, the divine union of God, again, through our higher self. And separation is what makes us, live in duality, which is what we've all essentially, consented to by coming into the third dimension, right? Because we understand there's duality. I'm going to get to love, law of attraction, but I want to talk about the 4 principles of creation because they're encompassed in this. These are very, very important to understand. Okay, I have the 4 principles of creation and then the 5 keys to manifesting joy, but this is for anyone and for everyone. What is love? You hear love all the time, Rex, from people that say, oh, unconditional love, brother, peace. It's all about love and love for everything. Most people get this confused because they think of love as like their love for their kids or the love for their wife or the love for their dog. But love really means what the indigenous of Mesoamerica, which we will go meet at the end of this year, talk about as Ani. And Ani is divine reciprocity. It is a reverence for all things. The trees, the animals, the insects, the wind, the rivers, everything is conscious, everything is sentient, and then everything associated you should treat with the golden rule, do as to others, right? So like when you get to that level, that's what love is, and love is allowing, okay? So when you know that you are loved and you feel this love, you can begin to master life. The universal laws, what you were talking about before, manifestation, right? Creating, which I'll get to. The second principle of creation is health and well-being. All of us naturally were born with the idea that it's okay to be healthy. Illness and disease are literally the result of our beliefs, okay? We program our physical reality based on our beliefs, right? So if we encounter sickness or disease or imperfect health, our thoughts can overcome that, but we can also label that disease as an identification for us, and so our disease becomes worse, right? Like, how many people have you met in your life who say, my sciatica, or this illness or that illness, and they're themselves based on that illness or that disease state or whatever it is, and so then it becomes a part of them, and then now they've programmed their cells to think that they are diseased or sick. And again, this is from separation, the original fear, right? That we are separated from God, from the source field, the energy, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people have different beliefs of what God is. But understanding your fears are imagined, you can absolutely free yourself from the original cause of illness and disease. Now, look, there's a lot of guys, Rex, that have written books, men and women who've written books. Louise Hay, I forget the other guy who's very famous for this, that you can cure yourself of any illness through mental, fortitude, meditation, deep inner reflection, contemplation, introspection. And it's absolutely true, And Louise Hay has even gone deeper. She's taken like every malady, every illness, whether you have a back issue, a leg issue, a head issue, upper torso issue, and she's defined it relative to the thought pattern. So, like, for example, like if you have upper back problems, she's defined it as you have financial issues in your life. I always think of the Rex Bear statement, bills and issues, everybody's got them, right?
I just said that in my last podcast. Were you listening to that?
You said that like 6 years ago to me, and I've probably repeated it 1,000 times, right? Because it's a very profound statement. So we define our physical health by the way we program ourselves. So like even for me in my times in my life, whenever I've had financial issues, which there have been many times, my upper back seizes up, right? So bottom line is there's great people who've written books and collated all this information, and you can literally collate disease and illness relative to the mindset that you have around that condition. The third principle of creation is abundance. Okay, this is literally our life's primary purpose, to live in abundance, right? To move beyond lack, scarcity, and limitation. Poverty, lack, and scarcity stem from our primal fear, which again is separation from source God. Let me break it down for people to understand this even better. Rex, our parents' parents came from the Depression. Their entire mindset and belief systems were created around scarcity from living in the Depression. I mean, you think about all of that all-encompassing energy field from having nothing, breadlines, rationing food, going to bed starving at night. So, this is literally collectively hundreds of millions, if not, ultimately billions of people who were affected, who were born after. But, their parents and were affected by it too. And, your parents, Rex, and my parents raised us with scarcity and limiting beliefs and probably poverty mindset, because again, that's what they came from. So when you get to an awareness that it's okay to overcome that, mentally to live your life in abundance, and again, you are the source of your own abundance by your thoughts, you can absolutely overcome that. But that is a very difficult control lever to overcome, and again, maybe you could make an argument that we might be going into that again. And so, our kids, it's going to be important that we don't teach that mindset to our children, because we might be going into, a significant financial decline. It seems like that's what, whoever is architecting behind the veil wants. But bottom line is, by uncovering your beliefs concerning lack and scarcity, you will create or can create abundance in every aspect of your life. So then the last one, which is really important, and this is you and me every day of our lives, is creativity. It's the core of our soul, right? It is the nature of us to be creative individuals. We are driven to create experience, because that service, which is to the collective, which is all of humanity, and really all of life. I don't even like saying humanity, because we know there's all sorts of shapeshifters, right? So source creation experience is what we create. So the religious folks will get mad and stuff and say, that's not true, Jay. Source and God is omnipotent, and it knows everything and it doesn't care about our experiences. That's not true. I mean, if you understand anything about quantum physics, you understand that the universe is evolving. It's contracting and it's expanding, on and onward. And, all great theoretical scientists, whether they're Newtonian or, expanded quantum, talk about the expansion in the creation cycle. So we know that we are driven to create as beings. So as you create, you discover more of who you are through the observation of your creation. So think about Rex Bear. How many podcasts have you done? How many people's lives have you impacted? Literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. I mean, I would argue millions through your creation of this content, for your creation of this channel, through your creation of this energy field that you have created around the world in this universe that we're living in right now. You've created the Leak Project, and so many thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people have benefited from your creativity. Okay, so if you have any questions or you want to comment, please do.
Well, yeah, first of all, thank you. I'm going to have to open up a window now because speaking of the ego, it's getting pretty big. You're a very kind man, Jay. I really appreciate you, man.
No ego, bro. It's all true, man. I don't BS people. You know that.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. And I bet you there's previous lives or maybe even this one somewhere where everybody that I've helped has helped me in some way. And just being able to do the podcasts, just being able to talk about this stuff and people watching the shows, that helps me just as much because if I wasn't doing it here, I'd be doing it somewhere else, right? I mean, I grew up and I've always been different. I've always been the redheaded stepchild without red hair, which is cool. And like the lone wolf. But I love people, and I see, growing up, I saw people not really understanding the big picture, and I tried to help them, and I did my best to help them, and I would talk about the same kind of stuff when I worked for, Fortune 500 companies, and I even had my boss coming up to me, he's like, hey, man, can we talk about something else? You're freaking everybody out. I'm like, oh, yeah, all right, sorry about that. So thank you, Jay, and thank you, everybody that's watching this podcast and all the podcasts that you've watched, because I appreciate you and you're being the change. You're making a difference. I mean, when I watch movies on Netflix and Amazon that are using the exact same lines that I have used previous, it could be maybe they never saw the shows. It just was part of the universal ether, or maybe they did. And they're like, okay, we're going to put that in the film. And I'm just like, awesome. That's great. Like the Atom Project, excellent movie.
Yep.
Atom Project. I love the name, right? Leak Project, the Atom Project.
Yep.
Great acting. And so then Ryan says, be the change you want to see. And that was a very powerful.
Like, I've heard that before.
Yeah. And, I kind of adopted it from Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world.
Sure.
So I didn't originate it myself, but I did want to make it tweak it a little bit to where I thought it sounded had the most impact with the least amount of words. And I think it does. I think it makes people think about who they want to be, what they want to be, what they want the world to be. So this is a great presentation, man. Please continue.
It's a profound statement, and it resonated with me the first moment that you spoke to me back in 2016, bro. Actually, I think we had our first show in 2015, and then 2016 is when we did Decoders of Truth. I mean, it goes back, man. It's amazing. But yes, everything I'm saying about you is true. You've changed the world. You've changed Hollywood. I mean, all of us have contributed to this. And, there is the energetic equation to what you said. You push it into the ether, and then because it is a resonant frequency, it finds other like fields which are resonant and coherent, and then it expands. And then, again, the 100 monkey, one person becomes 100, 100 becomes 1,000, and so on and so forth. So I'll go back to sharing, because this is I think my favorite part of the lecture. So, me, I've been on your show to talk about this many times. I mean, everything is vibration, right? Like if you've, read any books on the Hermetic teachings or the Gnostics, and again, I know you've interviewed countless people who've talked about this. Everything on planet Earth in the third dimension has a vibrational frequency. The rocks are vibrating. Our dogs are vibrating. You and I are vibrating. And so the level of the vibration is what determines essentially the energy that you experience in your life. So to manifest joy in your life, there are 5 keys, and let me talk about them. The first one, and by the way, I used a lot of these photos from my first trip to Peru back in 2019, so we'll be walking through that exact same picture, in a couple of months, hopefully. But self-appreciation, okay? This is the number one issue for every single one of us until we integrate this as a trauma field and we overcome this. And appreciating yourself is literally the most important thing you can do to raise your frequency, to raise your vibration. It enhances your ability to create through the acknowledgement of your gifts. Your vibration, so again, your consciousness And this is, of course, for you guys not familiar with me and Rex talking about this, this is Dr. Hawkins's field, the calibrated field from 0 to 1,000 of consciousness. Your vibration increases as you align with the universal truths of I am love and I am powerful. So think about that. Now, let me give you guys something to calibrate this. Most people, and this is even way worse in men than women, most people don't understand the statement, okay? If you do not love and trust yourself, you cannot love and trust anyone else. Now, you say that to a father who has 5 kids, 3 kids, 2 kids, who's happily married to his wife, and they'll literally usually want to punch you in the face and say, you're full of shit. I love my wife and kids more than anything. And it's like, if you don't understand that you don't love yourself as, first and foremost, you can't ultimately love your wife and kids in the way that you think you do. And again, a lot of people resist this, but this is an awareness that comes from getting to a place of loving and trusting yourself. And I did not love and trust myself. I'm 51. I did not love and trust myself until literally I was 44 years old. Okay. I went through life. I did a lot of things, in the Matrix. I made a lot of money. I traveled. I did all these things, but I was not who I am today because I did not love and trust myself. So through, inner work and, spiritual exploration and, reading books of self-improvement, talking to my beautiful, amazing wife who really mentored me through this, meeting people like Rex, Robert Stanley, Billy Carson, Matt LaCroix, Gerald Clark, all these amazing people that I met, they taught me the value of raising my frequency, doing things to raise my frequency. I remember in the very beginning when I first, started talking to you, Gerald used to have personal conversations with me. He said, you swear too much. You're a brilliant guy, but you swear too much. You got to stop speaking like that. And I was like, huh? And then, once he explained it to me, I was like, wow. So, we're all going through these stages of awareness and we're all getting to this place of contribution and wanting to raise our field and our frequency, but we're all, as you know, Rex, walking the path at different rates and speed. Number one, to truly expand your energy of joy and creating joy in your life. Number two, and this is a huge one too, all of these are huge, truthfully, but allowing most of you guys watching the show or will watch the show in the recording. And by the way, let me say what Rex said to echo you. Thank you guys. I love all of you, even the trolls, even the haters, because without you guys, Rex and I wouldn't be here right now. So thank you. Thank you for all the things that you do. Thank you for watching our videos. Thank you for sharing our videos. Thank you for all the things you do. Humbly grateful for you. Allowance is huge because you've heard of acceptance. The ancient gurus and the sages and the mystics and the wisdom teachers would always talk about acceptance. Buddha talks about acceptance. But allowance is even bigger because you can accept something but then not allow it. And truthfully, when you allow everything to happen, it's literally the key to living a life full of love, right? So for free will to exist, there has to be allowance. Everything is happening as it is divinely intended, always and in all ways. That's my statement. I stole it from this guy, but I added to it. He just said everything is happening as it's divinely intended. And so I added always and in all ways. So when you get to that level of awareness, you will stop resisting things that happen to you that you define as negative. Because if you really truly see that there's only God and then there's us in these third dimensional body incarnations or, whatever you want to call it, manifestations and avatars, Avatar Part 2 is coming out this winter. I'm sure that's going to be interesting. But we're in these physical bodies as spiritually infinite beings to evolve and grow our soul. Then you got to allow everything to happen because that's part of how it works, right? So again, resistance to this awareness causes a blockage of universal life force energy. And by the way, universal life force energy is chi, orgone energy, prana. There's other ways to define it. The ether, the energy field, bioenergy, quantum energy, scalar energy. It's all the same. Okay, so you guys know gratitude. I'm not going to spend much time on gratitude, but gratitude is huge. You can tell from me, I am in a place of gratitude in my life now. I thank everyone for my opportunities. I go to bed and I send energy to my mom and dad and other people in my life that I feel are not as aware, because I truly am grateful that they brought me into this planet. They had sex and They created me, right? And, for all our ups and downs and stuff like that, I'm grateful to them as my parents, just as I'm grateful to all of you watching the show. I'm grateful to Rex for creating this opportunity for me to express my energy and my frequency. But gratitude is so huge. If you're not in a place of gratitude, start waking up in the morning and spend 3 minutes writing down 2 things that you're grateful for. It'll change your life. I know it's cliche and there's a million books out there and podcasts that talk about it, but it really is true. As you practice gratitude and you acknowledge what you have, you shift not just your focus, but you actually shift the vibration of resonance into the direction of more of the things that you desire. So again, gratitude is the acknowledgement of the love you have, right? As you acknowledge everything with gratitude, you begin to radiate love. And then you draw more of health and well-being and abundance into your life. And this is so true. And I'm going to get to creating your reality and the law of resonance later. But, this is right where it is. What you focus on tends to manifest. So you never, ever focus on what you don't have. You always focus on what you want more of. And most people get caught up in the lack aspect of things, which we already kind of covered. And so they're focusing on the lack or the lack of, or, wanting instead, sort of not having instead of wanting. So always focus on what you desire. Okay, forgiveness, huge one for me. A lot of people have things that happen to them in their life that they can't overcome. They can't forgive, quote unquote, the person that wronged them or did something bad. So if you can get to a place where you let go of everything, again, this unattachment, that creates health and well-being. If you never have anybody who's your enemy, think about this going through your life. How can you get sick? How can you have resistance? So, next line, if you're unwell, there's always something to forgive. That's absolutely true. Anyone who is sick with cancer, the sea, anything, you have somebody to forgive. You're holding on to anger and resentment, rage, animosity, whatever it is. There's no reason for it. You only have right now. And then forgiveness is remembering the truth of who you really are. If you have not forgiven, you will not remember that you are loved beyond measure, right? You're not separate from frequency and energy of source creation. Now, this is my biggest issue right now, still to this day, no matter how much I work. The human ego, the reptilian consciousness judges perceptually and visually everything that we come into contact with, right? If you're walking down a big, busy city street and you see a person who's overweight, you're like, oh, look at that fat person. Or you see a, African-American or Asian or Indian or whatever, ethnic creed or whatever. And you instantly, your brain, your ego is like, oh, that's a black person. Oh, that's an Asian person. Oh, that's an Indian person. This is unavoidable because this is just how our mind, our ego, our personality quantify. So it's critically important to understand that that you are going to, quote unquote, judge things reactively for certain reasons, again, mostly for survival. But you got to come to a place where you're like not judging people negatively, right? So it's an integral part that we are the creator of our own reality. When we judge, we're stating there is right and wrong. And when we state that there is right and wrong, we are stating there's no freedom of choice, which we know that's not true. So when you state you have no freedom of choice, then you say you are not the creator of your own reality. And you're giving your power away. You're disempowering yourself because essentially you're vibrating in victimhood. You're not accountable. You're not personally responsible. It's not my fault. So-and-so, the white hats are coming to save me. My doctor said, right? So you're disempowered. You are your own savior. So every judgment is about your lack of love for yourself. That's crazy to think like that. But when you judge another person or another, thing, that's something reflecting back into you, right? Because we are projecting our reality at all times. We are literally a mirror. We are a universal conscious mirror of our thoughts. So every time somebody goes on Rex's channel and writes a nasty thought to Rex, that's how they feel about themselves. That is their projection of their reality. And now they are spinning it into the ether because that's how they feel. So all of us, when we react, instinctually out of survival, which is our reptilian consciousness, that's how we feel about ourselves when we make that energy frequency statement, comment, voicemail, whatever, and it's negative. That's our reptilian consciousness. So it's just something to recognize and, again, to overcome from a standpoint of like loving and trusting yourself, how to work on that. All right, so going into creating our own reality and talk about the law of resonance, do you have any comments?
I think this is fantastic. And no, I don't. I'm just listening. There's a lot of background noise right now. So it's nice that you're doing the majority of the talking because it's raining like crazy. And
it's awesome.
But I can hear you great, and I just want you to keep going, man. I don't even want to interrupt. I'm just gonna listen here. So thank you.
Okay, awesome, man. Okay, guys. So moving into this, very important for you watching and listening to this to understand that all of us do create our own reality. Okay. And, reality creation, quantum physics, whatever you want to call this, most people know it as the law of attraction. The Hermetic teachings or teachers called this, the Gnostics, they called this the law of resonance, right? So very important, close your eyes, picture this right now in your mind, like think of what you want the most in your life and nothing else. Okay. And then imagine you having that experience. So imagine it as Neville Goddard, the great author, says, the wish fulfilled. Okay. And if you, just sit there maybe for 10 seconds, whatever it is, seeing it as like an energy or an energetic vibration of like having exactly what you want. In order to create reality in the third dimension, as Rex was talking about this at the beginning of the show, manifestation in the third dimension comes from, very important, listen, focused thoughts, okay, which is thinking it, and then it's conscious words, which is feeling it. You're speaking it into existence, and you're feeling the vibration of those words, and then it's allowing it, which is the loving action. And then you create, right? So it takes, like, for example, if we want to quantify this, to create, like, more money, however you define that, and that's, whatever, I don't have judgment of that. If you want to create more money, you have to do all of those things over time, and you can create that reality. Now, if we were in a higher state of awareness, dimension, vibration, however you want to look at it, you could actually think it and instantly manifest it. Now, we're obviously not there in this third dimension, so reality creation in the third dimension requires focused thoughts, conscious words, and then massive loving action. That's how you will create your reality, right? So the universe responds to your thinking, and the third dimension is the world of comparison with two sides. This is important. You have a negative pole, which is the lack of what you want, and the positive pole, which is the having of what you want. Very important. The universe can only deliver to you that which you focus upon. So you don't ever want to focus on not having. You want to focus on having and to have, right? So comparison helps you know what you want by what you don't want. So comparison, you've heard of that statement, comparison is the thief of all joy. It's still cool to experience what you don't want, but you never want to focus on what you don't want. And that's the problem, is that many people who are, again, down here in the red chakra, vibrating in what I call fear or victimhood, are always focused on what they don't have and not willing or not capable of being empowered to create what they do have. And so, again, they're not capable of taking ownership. They're disempowered. They're, not personally accountable or responsible. So you can change that. Doesn't matter where you are, where you find yourself right now watching the show, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it in the rerun, you can change exactly where you find yourself right now by, again, conscious words, focused thoughts, and massive loving action. Okay, so don't forget that. Desire is the separator. Rex has an amazing, overwhelming desire to create amazing content from other amazing creators who have amazing things to say through their research, right? So this is the inner drive of humanity, which, we also know as the seed of the soul. So if you literally add a healthy dose of self-appreciation, which is loving and trusting of yourself, to your desire, you don't have any obstacles in life. I mean, think about this for a second, Rex, and you don't have to answer, but how many podcasts have you done? I mean, if you did not have an overwhelming desire to do podcasts and to benefit literally thousands of other creators and then millions of human beings, I mean, literally probably because of your audience, if you just did the math, hundreds of millions of human beings, then you wouldn't be doing this. And again, think of how many people that you benefited, including myself, right? So success comes from two things and two things only: the absolute desire to become the thing you want to become, and ultimately from loving and trusting yourself, which is self-appreciation. You can't have success without those two things. And look, I can tell you guys, as a guy who did not have those things until I was 45 years old, I mean, it's only been 6 years that I've been in this vibrational energy. I had all the money that you can imagine. I was a multimillionaire. I traveled the world. I had the hottest girlfriends and, wives. I mean, I had all the material, shiny things. I had all that. And I had none of this. I did not have success because I did not love and trust myself. I did not have self-appreciation. And so anybody that was involved with me, also, I was not loving and trusting as like I could because I didn't have it for myself. Okay, so when creating, and this is an interesting one because, people can say back, well, yeah, but like doing porn is good, bro. It feels good, right? But like, again, there's morality, there's integrity, there's right action, as Yeshua, aka Jesus, would define it. So when you're creating, you want to feel good. So this goes back to people that are sitting in cubicles and they go to a job every day that they absolutely hate. Are you truly creating and feeling good sitting in that cubicle? No. If you are sitting there defining your life based on your cubicle job because you make a certain amount of money that pays a certain amount of bills and handles a certain amount of issues and makes your wife happy and your kids, be able to go to this, that, and the other, but you're not happy, then you're not truly creating. You're in consumption and you're living in the matrix. You're not creating a reality outside of the matrix, right? You are of this earth and not in this earth or in this third dimension. So you have to feel good about what you're doing to truly radiate and draw energy and power to yourself. Okay, so this is how you become a master creator in the third dimension.
I've noticed over the past 6 years approximately since we've been talking, you've probably read over 100 books, and you have evolved substantially. And you've been on this thing with vibration for the past few years, I've noticed, and it's made a difference. And, when you brought up everything is vibration, it makes me think of the 432 hertz being a specific frequency for uplifting people. 440 hertz is it's the opposite of that. It actually takes people down, yet that was brought into the industry standard for music recordings, which is very odd. And so even the sounds, like here's one for you, and then I'd like you to continue. Musicians are magicians.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I'll take it even further. 432 hertz is what is configured for crystal singing bowls, for Lama and Tibetan gongs. So it is, again, a divine field or energy of frequency from source or creation force. I think, depending on your spiritual inclinations or beliefs, I think it's easier today on this planet to define source as creation force, right? Like I know I've talked about this before. I'll just share real quick before I jump back into the higher self. If you've ever done plant medicine, Bufo, which is the Sonoran desert toad, 5-MeO, DMT, 5-MeO, you can be blasted into the source energy field from that experience. It alters your consciousness. You essentially, you kind of leave your body. I don't know if I don't want to compare it to like astral projection or astral traveling, but you definitely feel yourself as a consciousness, existing. And that energy and frequency that you're in when you're in that field, and I've been there many times now, is like almost like an Om or an Om meditation. And I know I've shared this with you, and I'll just do it for a second, but like I can literally do an Om and an Om meditation, put my hand right here, take a deep breath and relax, and create the octave and the harmonic frequency that allows me to enter the source field just as I first experienced it when I was doing 5-MeO 11 years ago. I swear to God, I did it on a podcast that I was on this morning with a guy in the UK. And anyone can do this. Any one of you guys listening or watching can do this. If you do Om and Om meditations all the time, you already have that ability if you're aware of that. And that literally is experiencing the divine energy field of God or source consciousness. That's what it is. It's literally a harmonic energy field. And again, the Bible talks about, in the beginning was the word, and before the word was sound. the sound is creation, but you don't understand or express or feel that until you've actually been able to enter that field. And again, near-death experiencers have experienced this field or felt this field or vibrated this field. It really is a vibration. You're out of your body. You don't have hearing. You don't have seeing, but you literally do feel the vibration of source. And the vibration of source is this amazingly, harmonically, blissful, resonant, coherent love. It's just love. I mean, when you're in that, you are literally pure bliss, love. Like some people experience it as crying. Some people just experience it like I do, or I just have my hand on my heart, even though you don't really consciously aware of that. And you're just expressing the love from your heart. And it's truly amazing to be able to do that and to get to that level of consciousness or awareness. But again, everyone can do it. I'm not special. This is just things that I've done, things I've worked on, part of my path or my mission, I wouldn't say it's my purpose, but my mission, to evolve and grow as, my soul through this levels of awareness. I've experienced this. So I'm going to go back to sharing. Is that cool?
Dude, you're incredible, man. This is absolutely amazing.
Thank you, my brother.
Yeah.
I told you that this was going to be the best show that you and I ever did together, because I just know that the energy of this is just so all-empowering that even the haters and the trolls of us, won't be able to say negative things about this. They may say, oh, Jay's gone woo-woo, or, he's jumped the new age or whatever, but I mean, I just know from my work that this is a field of energy that will help people. So thank you again for the opportunity. Okay, so inner guidance, this is what Rex and I were talking about at the very beginning of the show. This is understanding that your divine connection, your divine aspect is your higher self. Now, your higher self is also known as your intuition, your superconscious wisdom, the Christ, the light of being. My favorite is the light of being, right? Because the Matrix wants us doing, and Rex and I are chief doers. We create all these things. But you got to get to a balance of being, which is when Rex goes out into his river in the backyard. And he puts his foot in the river of nature. And again, by the way, nature, I'm going to get to nature in a second. But this is being. It's putting your phone down. It's being present. In fact, I'm going to say this, and I was going to save this, but it's a perfect place to segue. The only thing that any of us have right now in this third dimension of absolute insanity, there's just so much craziness happening every moment. All is being revealed, as Robert Stanley says, if you have eyes to see. The only thing that any of us have right now is literally the present moment, but it's our presence in the present moment. Think of how profound that is. So right now, you and I are present in this experience of this podcast, and we have literally thousands of people who are listening or watching or will watch it who are also present. But if you are on your phone or answering emails or doing whatever, and you're not listening, you're not present in the present moment. You're distracted. And this is what, and we're going to get to the duality of good and evil, light and dark. This is what the negative side wants you to be. They want you to be distracted. They don't want you to be present. Okay, I'll get to that more soon, but without the presence of inner guidance that comes from outside of you is little use. Now, this is like also where people say, I believe. So people who are very advanced consciously know, because they have done the inner work, they have mastered the level of discernment and critical thinking that comes with knowing. Now, Rex, you know this from Pierre Sabak and a lot of the other people you brought on your show who talk about the root of the etymological root language of, or the etymological root origin of language, and how certain, let's just call them certain powers who do not like us because they don't like us, Rex. They have initiated or controlled that etymological meaning to invert certain words and to invert certain meanings and sentences structure and grammar and syntax and all of this. And again, without going into that, because I'm not really an expert in talking about that. Pierre is, there's other people, what's his name? The black dude that talks about that. He's amazing. I forget, but there's people that understand that, but they have basically hijacked the languages that we speak. It's not just English, it's pretty much everything, to invert meanings of specific words and octaves. So, like, you have to be aware of some of those things. But when you understand that you are a characterization of your higher self, which again is your divine act, you will automatically know truth. That's how simple that is. And again, how do you automatically know truth? By going within. Meditation, contemplation, introspection, sitting in your backyard, putting your feet in the river. Doing this methodically, repeatedly, with ruthless focus every day. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. You know, you could go into my Apple Health app and see how many times I've meditated in the last 3 years. It's all in there. Every single time I finish my chakra beats thing, which is how I mostly do it, it says, do you want to save this? I was actually looking at it the other day. I was like, oh, interesting, right? But this comes from a ruthless focus. So I also say only a pure heart can discern truth. Again, how do you get a pure heart? By loving and trusting yourself. It's the only way you can have a pure heart. When you love and trust yourself, you have a pure heart. It's that simple. You are now looking out for the best of everyone that you influence with or create with, or, you know, it's beyond your loved ones. It goes back again of unconditional love. When you're unconditionally loving, everything that you come into contact with is divine and sacred to you. So you're not going to litter. You're not going to step on cockroaches. You're not going to go out and shoot animals. But Rex, you can eat meat, right? But like, you know what I'm saying? Like you have a divine reverence for all things. And by the way, because I made that comment before, you know, anybody attacks me, I always go back to the Confessions of the Lost Teachings of Atlantis. Okay, and that the guru, the yogi, or whatever in that book who wrote that, John, whatever his name is, he said, look, you can eat it whatever you want, but make sure you humbly give it thanks and praise before it sacrifices for you to eat. So remember, for vegans, animals are alive too. End of story, you know, case closed. Again, I don't have a dog in that hunt. If you are a vegan for spiritual purposes, I send you love and light. I say, that's amazing. Good. God bless you. Just make sure that you get enough essential amino acids and that you are okay and non-judging of people who do eat animals, because we all have a choice. And if we choose to eat this, that, or the other, we give it thanks and praise before for dedicating itself as a fuel source. The deepest desire of our souls is to become fully conscious while we're in the full physical body, right? So again, you know, some call this enlightenment, others ascension, but the truth is, it literally is, Rex, as simple as this. It's allowing your higher self to guide you as you go through life. Now, not easy to do, right? But I'll show you an example of your higher self. We are physical, vibrating beings. We have our egos, which is our reptilian consciousness, and it is designed to keep us alive. You and I do a meditation, say this morning or tomorrow morning, and it's phenomenal. And we go into our place of work. You and I walk, 100 feet, 100 yards, whatever. And we start creating and we do what we do. And in that purpose or in that process, something crazy happens around us. Maybe a bomb goes off, or an explosion or a car crash, anything that is part of the third dimension. And your ability to react to that, and you have two choices. You can react out of fear, and that's your ego and that reptilian consciousness controlling you, or you can respond out of love, and that's your higher self. So even if you do react instinctively to a bomb going off, if you're allowing your higher self to guide you, you can immediately come back to the center and say, I'm reacting out of fear right now. Does it serve me to react out of fear? No, it doesn't. Let me go. And now you're back into that balanced field of allowing your higher self to govern and guide you. And anyone can do this. Again, that's where you got to get to, but it does take work. You can also think of it as like you getting cut off in traffic. You're in a Zen state and somebody cuts you off in traffic and almost kills you. Most people are going to grip the steering wheel, hit the accelerator, get up next to that person and scream at them and, MF them or whatever. That was me, all the way up until I was 44, 45. Or you can stand and say, wow, that guy must be having a bad day, and then smile at them and wave at them and then send them a resonant, coherent vibration or energy field. And now that energy field in their dissonant, incoherent frequency transmutes that dissonant carrier wave. And so now you literally have just created, from a realistic standpoint, like that person who's raging and angry and wanting to fight most likely is just like looked at you saying, waving at them to the smile, saying, I send you love and light. They're like, because you just transmuted that energy. And again, anyone can do this, right? So we should recognize that becoming fully connected to our higher self, our superconscious wisdom, the Christ of our own consciousness, the light of being, or the divine ego, is the most important part of living in a physical body in the third dimension. Once you attain that state of awareness, I mean, dude, the world is your oyster, but you are going to create so much power and joy and abundance and prosperity and gratitude and, of course, ultimately wisdom and truth for so many other people. It's a profound way to live your life. And again, it's not easy. It definitely takes work, but anyone can get to that place. And again, next line is, how is this done? It's literally done through meditation, contemplation, introspection, grounding in nature, which is what I do the most. Be still and know God. You've heard that. Everybody's heard that. It's very cliche. But in this stillness is when the divine downloads into the consciousness. That is when you are able to access what people call the Akashic records. I mean, Rex, I have in the last 2 years, and I know you called this out, and I'm grateful for this, I have been able to come up with answers on podcasts to questions that I don't know, because I have this ability now to access that, quote unquote, Akashic records, Hall of Records, what do you call it, the cosmic field of energy and information, all things are there, because I've opened myself up to be, I don't want to say a channel, because then people think, you're channeling, are you talking to Cryon? But, I'm literally able to access this information that I otherwise wouldn't have an answer to. And I swear to God, people have asked me off shows sometimes, they're like, how did you know that? And I'm like, oh, I just did. But that's connecting to that divine energy stream, again, through the work. And again, I'm not different than anyone else, Rex. This is not my ego. This is my work. Anyone can do this. All the great gurus, the Walter Russells, the Neville Goddards, the Joseph Benners, like all these amazing people, they also have this. You read their books and you're like, this is insane. How do they know this? And they know this because they worked on themselves. They got to a place of love and trust of self-appreciation, and then they did the work. They, did this inward reflection, this contemplative practice. I should probably get this guy to get him on your podcast, but Dr. Udo Erasmus, who's the father of essential fatty acids. He's a genius. I mean, his books are amazing. He's probably a billionaire. I don't even know. I don't care. He's like almost 90. Rex, he's meditated. He told me more than 30,000 hours of his life. And, I'll give you a link to some of our podcasts. We've done 2 together. I mean, I don't even say a word, dude. It's like listening to Buddha, the Christ. I mean, the guy is the most unbelievable person I think I've ever met. I've met a couple of amazing people in my life, but just listening to him is just, you can't believe it. And again, his awareness and profound level of knowledge and, all the things he comes from is from his sitting in stillness. I even asked him, I'm like, have you ever been so deep in the field that you just decided that you didn't want to come back because it was like, what's the point? And he's like, only once. This is such an amazing person, And again, there's many people out there. I mean, Rex, you know this. You've done podcasts. I mean, there's been yogis and lamas who literally just went deep into meditation and sat there in the lotus position and left. And they, astrally projected or traveled into a higher dimension or whatever, and their bodies stayed there in perfect, preserved physical form because they were capable of raising their, you think of it as a light body, but they were able to raise their consciousness so much that their consciousness kept their physical body working. There's all sorts of stories about that. I don't know how long you can live, but I mean, you think about it, it could be gone much deeper. So the next section is Mother Nature and how it is really our connection and co-creation, because nature is God. Nature is the source field. Mother Earth, Gaia, whatever you want to call it, that is divinity. And you can easily access this and feel this and know this by just going into nature. Climb an 18,000-foot peak, a 15,000-foot peak. Go into the wilds of the mountains. Matt talks about this. Rex, I know you talk about this. I mean, you're constantly out there in nature, seeking, finding, searching, ruins and all sorts of crazy stuff. And the energy of nature is the energy of God. And all of the indigenous talked about this for thousands of years. But this is literally the field of source, the field of heaven, the field of consciousness itself, quantum consciousness. And, I have down here, this was my last ceremony that I did in Baja, Mexico in November of last year. My wife, and she had her 50th birthday. We did a yoga retreat down there, and we had no plans of doing this, but in the yoga retreat, we met this amazing woman who was connected to indigenous in Baja, Mexico. And this guy right here is literally a trained Amazonian shaman. That dude is straight up from the Amazon in South America. I forget which country. He's not from Peru, but he lives in Mexico right now. And he came out and he gave me and Monica a sunrise ceremony of Bufo, and it was so profound. I mean, imagine literally being in the source field as the sun comes up and washes over your body. And you can't see right here, but the shadow behind me was an umbrella. He has an umbrella. The guy does ceremonies for people right on the beach. Some of the most profound thing you could ever experience. But again, I say nature is God, which is, in my mind, the way I quantify it, the unified field of everything and nothing, right? Grounding. I just said that to you before we went live, right? You feel sick from the big C. The quickest way to overcome feeling that is getting away from this. Because these EMFs here are very harmful. I mean, I won't get into that. Rex has been measuring it for 10 years. I mean, still, go out into nature, put your feet in the grass, put your feet in a stream, a lake, the ocean. The sand is amazing if you live near a beach. And get rid of the EMF. And you can absolutely do it. I mean, again, Mother Nature is your greatest defense to, EMF radiation. I think this is where we get bogged down and we get caught up in the whole good and bad, dark and light, good versus evil. And so I really like talking about the law of balance. And start thinking, if you really want to set this up before I go deep into this, is thinking of Star Wars, the trilogies and just the ideology of Star Wars, and you have the Force, and you got the light side of the Force, and you got the dark side of the Force, which again is light and dark. But let me just preface this by saying, without freaking people out, because I know people resist to this, but if you understand that you are not, all of us are not separate from the love of God, Source, divine creation force, scalar, life force, energy, whatever you want to call it. There's nothing really bad in the universe. There's just two states of emotion, love and fear. So if you choose to be in a state of fear, which again is your choice, now obviously you have a lot of things that may or may not happen to you in your life, but again, your choice is always how you define the things that happen to you and the way you label them perceptually, right? So in my, ego-driven first 44, 45 years, I define things as disasters, collapses, debacles, bad things happening to me. But as I became more consciously advanced and aware, I started looking at all those things and started defining them as the greatest opportunities, because in those opportunities, I evolved above and beyond them. I evolved through the contrast that those opportunities provided them. So again, everything is perception. You're either in a love field or frequency, which is, again, resonance or coherence, or you're in a fear state or frequency, which is dissonance and incoherence. So your choice is always your choice. I always like to say on social media, dissonance or resonance, you get to choose. Evil, right? Negative things, parasitic energy fields or frequencies or occurrences are from the fear that we have as humans, which causes separation. But remember, separation is a myth, because ultimately we are still in the energy field of God who created us, or divinity, whatever you want to call it, source creation, universal consciousness. And when we're separate, when we think separation, we are in a personality split that makes us think that we don't have God on our side. God's the enemy. We're outside of the field of source, which is not true. We're imagining that. It's pure illusion. Because again, nothing or no being exists beyond the love of God. All things exist within the mind and heart of God, even those we judge to be evil. Now, I'm going to get deeper to that if you resist that. So just as God was created in our image, so was, quote unquote, Satan, the devil, Ptah, all the names, Demiurge, Yaldabaoth. I mean, even the Gnostics said that, he was the creation of Sophia, which is like a duplication or a copy the what do you call it? The imitated light. Huna, the shaman, Huna Flash, he talks about, what is it? Not invisible light, but the copy. I forgot what it calls. Not light. I forget the name of it right now, but I don't want to lose my train of thought here. But again, everything is existing in the mind, heart of God. And if you understand that, then there is nothing evil. It's just the separation of our mindset. So the devil and God archetypes, okay, of human beings' capabilities, right? We have our greatest dreams and our worst nightmares. Obviously, the greatest dreams are love and the worst nightmares are fear. We are capable of great miracles, compassion, and kindness, and just the same, great cruelty and atrocities. And again, these are always a reflection of our inner state. If our inner state is fear-based, we're in apathy, guilt, despair, blame, shame, humiliation, miserable. And if we're love-based, we're in love, reverence, serenity, joy, benign, reason, understanding, right? So when you think about this, when we incarnated as souls into these bodies, into our physical experience, which isn't real. We're imagining this, again, to evolve and grow our soul, because, again, we are energy beings. Our primary goal was focused on survival of our physical body, which is the reptilian consciousness, the DNA of the reptilian mind, which, again, is our name, our personality. It keeps us alive. It's very needed, as Rex said at the very beginning of the show. And that was the primary goal, which was to stay alive, to keep the physical body alive, right? So we become attached to our physical bodies as all that is. And I like to call this as body consciousness. So we become very body conscious. And most people, unfortunately, where we're at right now, and I know it's changing, the Great Awakening is happening, but most people are still mostly concerned with their body consciousness because they don't look at themselves as an infinite, eternal spiritual being. They think of themselves as this body. And then when you think of yourself as a body, you're ultimately going to think about your life expectancy and your finite existence and death. And then you're afraid of physical death. And then, death, being afraid of death ultimately leads you into a state of fear in most things, right? But because we have this, or despite our deep association with our physical bodies, we always still have our eternal connection with our higher self, which again is our divine aspect, the source, right? And that higher self pulsates with the constant will to love. And that's absolutely true. That's not even debatable. But as we externalized ourselves with our physical body, which is what everybody has to do and goes through, we also externalized our knowing, which has allowed us to invent a personalized God. And Rex, you know this, we talked about this in the Decoders of Truth podcast. This is what I call Santa Claus sitting on a golden chalice in the sky with a trident, with a white robe and a white beard, which is again popularized by Abrahamic religious teachings. And what's important about this is that we became subservient to that externalized image of God. And we cease to experience the real source God, or again, the higher self, the aspect of our higher self, the light of being, the Christ of our own consciousness. And the knowing that authority really does come from that inner knowing and that inner higher self, which is the inner God or divinity inside you. And again, every one of us has this. So the experience of physicality, which is again living in this physical body, body conscious, we created a scenario where everything was external, including God, right? So it's like you think of people today who are living in fear consciousness, everything is externalized, okay? Their externalization is, my doctor said, my priest said, T and the white hats are coming to save me. Everything is externalized. It cannot take ownership and personal accountability and sovereignty for themselves because they are their own savior, but they are externalizing it because it's easier to not take ownership, right? So in the same way, and this is where it gets confusing, so follow me here, Satan, the devil, Ptah, the dark energy, Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, and then, of course, the evil forces and conspiracies are then created as a representation of our worst fears. Now, I don't want people to think that these aren't real, because they are. We create these, as you said earlier, Rex, with our thoughts and our consciousness. We're programming our reality with our thoughts, right? So fear-based things ultimately manifest as like an egregore. But as these negative forces that work against us are real, but the product of those who have forgotten, again, that all power lies within. So if you got 80% of humanity, Rex, the collective consciousness, and again, I'm using that as an estimation, vibrating in fear, well, then you're going to create a lot of fear-based reality. You're going to, reptilian shapeshifter. I mean, you're going to have everything and anything possible, demons, insectoids, abductions. All of this stuff is a creation of our thought constructs in this third dimensional reality, which of course we know we have the ability to create. So are you going to create out of love or create out of fear? Well, if 80% of people are creating out of fear, you know it's going to show up, right? So the Earth's consensus reality is always a pure reflection of the consensus of our beliefs. And I like to say our knowing, because beliefs is a word that Pierre Sabak would tell you is BELIEF, right? So that word belief is what the Abrahamic religious teachings or adherents and builders of that religion would cause people to think. Because if you believe, you don't know. You believe. You put the energy of belief and not the energy of love, which is know. Or I'm not knowing, not know, but knowing or awareness, cosmic awareness. So most believe the universe is a hostile place and we have to protect ourselves against it. This is very typical of souls who have yet to awaken to the way I've been talking about, which is, again, 80% of humanity right now, estimated, right? This is why religion, governments, and entertainment have so much control, because we are giving away our power to all the leaders in those fields, doctors, politicians, actors, priests, because they are all representing eternal saviors, people who have been conditioned, who we have been conditioned to quote unquote need. Until we realize as a collective that we are divine, empowered, and sovereign beings, right? And that all power comes from within us via our higher selves, which again is our superconscious wisdom, the light of being. The vibration of humanity is not going to shift into a neutrality or acceptance level, which, by the way, is like 200 to 250 on the quantified field, which is, again, courage, right? So think of it like this. I have the courage to say to my employer, because I am resisting the, you know what, F you, I'll go get another job. That is what courage comes in. That's when a person is like taking ownership, personal accountability, and sovereignty, and they're like, no, you don't control me. I have control over myself. And I am moving to a place of courage, and I am saying, go F yourself, right? So that's courage for like a very visible, tangible understanding of where you have to be. Now, obviously, people like me and you, Rex, we're so above that, because of who we are and what we do, that would never be a thought construct for us. But the average person, who's living in the matrix, who has a sandbox, this is my job, this is how much money I make, this is how much bills I have to pay, I got to send my kid to college, blah, 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 my second home mortgage, go to the river, my boat. Those people live in a box. And for them to get out of that box and to increase their vibrational frequency, they have to get to a place of courage. And as Dr. Hawkins says, going from a place of 175, which is pride, stubborn pride and ego, reptilian consciousness, to courage is the greatest jump of frequency in a human being's life. So once you go from again, stubborn pride, scorn, arrogance, whatever, to courage, all things become possible, because now you have resisted the man. You told the Rothschilds that you weren't going to bank with them anymore. You see what I'm saying? You have gone from I'm a sheeple NPC, you tell me what to do, to now a person who is conscious and is like, you know what? I don't know how I'm going to evolve from here, but I'm saying no. I recognize that I'm a sovereign, empowered, free being, and I'm going to control my reality. And so here's the woo-woo consciousness aspect of this. When you resist and move out of your box that you've been living in your whole life, energy demands equilibrium. So you change that field, that space, you've quit that job, you've resisted that, controlling ruler figure, and all of a sudden, Rex, you just freed up space for something better to come into your life. But you, again, have to move from arrogant pride, 175, to courage. But once you do, everything in your life changes, because at courage, you can move up the field another 200 points and you go right up into reason and love and joy. It's happened in my life. When I got out of the quote-unquote wage world, so did you. And I started creating my reality and controlling my income and living the way I wanted to. Everything changed. All of this shifted for me. And I'm not saying that you have to become an entrepreneur if you're listening and you're one of those people that's in a cubicle. But what I am saying is you have to have courage to stop and resist and stand up for what is right. And that's where a lot of people are unable to do, Rex.
Well, I mean, it's the mindset. It's we were talking about this the other day, and I remember Gerald and I talked about this 5 years ago, where we're talking about the DNA manipulation. If we were manipulated, if our DNA was manipulated for a specific purpose, then would there be safeguards in that DNA to prevent people from getting to a certain level of consciousness, like safeguards with artificial intelligence, right? So we are the artificial intelligence of the gods. Whether or not we were the gods, or not us personally, but our ancestors or humans that claim to be gods, or maybe the definition of God is different then versus now, and I would say for most people it is.
Yep.
But supposedly we were created to do the work for the gods. That makes us artificial intelligence. When I say artificial, I don't mean fake. Doesn't mean not real. Artificial in artificial intelligence terms means intelligence created by man. And if we were created by the gods, then we're the Cylons, dude.
Right.
We are the Cylons.
That's right. Okay, so a couple more sections. Am I cool to still go?
Totally.
Yeah, cool. And then we'll summarize this at the end and, give, very actionable solutions. So let me share. So this is my favorite section of this.
Right on. Jay is a plethora of knowledge. I want to thank you so much for watching the podcast. Check us out.